learning that you can't do everything and that you have to trust your people and you have to support them and guide them, but you cannot dictate to them. That was a big lesson. And you can't control what they do and who they are, right? So how to be empathetic, how to be supportive, how to be a good listener, how to be patient, how to guide, but not dictate.
So I had 2 years of military training. So when I became a leader, I thought I needed to be the sergeant and just tell them what to do, and it shall be my way or the highway, and and that backfired really fast. Welcome to the Leaders in Tech podcast. I am your host, David Mancella. This podcast is dedicated to interviewing people that are changing this world for a better place in the technology field, especially with leadership. A lot of people talk about technology and they go down deep into the technology realm, which is one of these people is me, actually. I love technology. But to be honest with you, my audience, you need people and leadership in order to build that technology. And the only reason why technology is there is to help other people have a better lifestyle and create more abundance in the world. So it's really by the people for the people. And the only way to achieve that is through leadership. So today we have with us Nora Osman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Nora, for the audience, can you tell me again your name, because usually I don't pronunciate it properly. Your name, where do you live, and what do you do for a living?
So Nora Osman again. I live in East Meadow, New York, and I am the Associate Vice President for IT Service Management at the Montefiore Health System.
Wonderful. And what is the focus of your organization? Are they a hospital chain, or they provide services?
It's a very large health system in New York. So they are a patient care provider. About 11 hospitals, the Einstein College of Medicine, over 300 locations, pretty vast health system situated in the Bronx and Westchester regions of New York.
That's fantastic. And it's incredible that you have been able to go so far in your career to have that top position. So let's review how that happened. Let's go back to your high school years. What were you thinking in high school? And what decisions did you make in your last year?
So if you had asked me what I was thinking in elementary school, that would have been a different answer than in high school. In high school, I actually thought I would go and become a physician. I was pursuing science and medicine, but in a different capacity. And that is what I initially started to study in college. I was pre-med, and a year and a half into it, recognized that wasn't necessarily going to be my area of prominence or strength, and shifted into business.
So you went right into business. So you shifted your majors?
I switched majors, yes, from being pre-med to being a business management major early on. But I did go to a science school, so I was at the Stony Brook University, which is a state university from New York.
Wow. And what happened after that?
What happened after that is after a dual major, and my other major was French, so oui, je parle français.
I wish I knew some French.
Yeah. I was really just interested in starting my career, and I worked in accounting roles in a commercial insurance company. And very shortly after starting there, I started to gravitate to learning around different types of technologies, including the mainframe. They were starting a network. They were rolling out PC and mainframe emulation, and really trying to modernize the workspace for that environment. And I started to learn and assist in different ways. And within a few years, I became the head of that department, and
wow,
running all of technology in that space.
Okay, that doesn't happen normally. So let's step back a little bit. You were doing a business role in accounting, and the company started to create more of a change with technology, and then so that you were aware of it, and then you started liking it. So is that what I hear?
Yeah, what happened is I would finish my accounting work and then kind of present myself like, can I help somebody? Is there something I can do? And somebody who is easily bored and constantly looking for a challenge, coming into management saying, do you need help with this or do you need help with that? Sure, here, do this, do that. Oh, by the way, can you work on these terminals and help get them ready for these people who are starting? Sure. So I started to amass knowledge around the mainframe. We had an AS400. So yeah, I guess I'm dating myself. And eventually, as we started to roll out a Novell network, I started to learn about networking and how to configure different nodes and manage a patch panel and bring PCs onto the network and start to really put together the security strategy and put in on, antivirus software and unique applications, pushing those out. So I got very excited because this was very uncharted territory, and I began to learn at a very fast pace and was excited about that.
Congratulations, that's incredible. People actually go to college to learn that,
It's interesting because you're right. We didn't have the internet, so we didn't have the ability back then to learn at a self-managed pace the way we do now. Mm-hmm. So it was basically on-the-job training, and because an opportunity presented itself. But I think it was something that I gravitated towards just because I get bored easily.
That's amazing. So how was that transition from being in accounting to becoming a manager of IT? How did that happen? How the opportunity showed itself?
It's basically with all of the technology changes that were happening, they were short-staffed. There was just one or two people that were running the technology, and they were relying on vendors. And so with volunteering to assist, I started to learn more and more about how to do things and write my instructions into little manuals. And that became helpful to others. And before I knew it, I was training other people to help me. And at some point, leadership realized, you should be stepping into a more prominent IT role. And my manager, who was actually the head of IT, went on a maternity leave. And when she left, I ended up taking on her role and really, running the operation from that point forward.
That's incredible. How opportunity presents itself, but actually you created the opportunity by being helpful and going above and beyond your current role and start helping out unconditionally, which is one of the things that I see. I see patterns because I'm a computer scientist, so I can detect patterns really well. And I've done enough of these episodes where I realize that that's one of the key components, willing to go above and beyond your current role in order to achieve the next step in your career.
Exactly. Instead of asking, why should I do that? Ask why not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there's something in it that you're going to learn. It's going to take you outside of your comfort zone, and it just presents opportunities that you couldn't have imagined.
And it's so sad because if you look at the majority of employees, they have this mentality where they get paid to do this role and they don't give anything else because they already justify their salary by delivering what they're supposed to deliver. And that's it. It's a box.
You're right. And they end up in essence shortchanging themselves because they could have done so much more or amassed sponsors for themselves if they had just put themselves out there and done a little more to show that they're excited about the challenge.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. So when you became manager, what was your biggest challenge the first time you started managing technology people?
Learning at the rate that I needed to learn in order to solve problems and know who I can go to, because there really wasn't a large department. So if you're the only one, or maybe there's one other person and your boss who's technical is a controller or is the head of accounting, you don't have a large department to grow in and people you can seek knowledge from. Yeah, find out that you have to go to vendors and ask for assistance or take courses on your own and chart your own course of learning in order to be a benefit and an asset to the company in your current role. So I think it's the fact that for me, it was very, very early. And it was a very small company with very few other people that could have really helped me grow faster and more comfortably in that role.
That's fantastic.
A rough landing, as you would say.
How long do you last working for a company until you take on the next opportunity?
My total time there was 6 years. I think I spent maybe 3.5 or 4 of those years in the technology side. So it was very little time in the accounting space. And the fun part of that is I started with 2 other young ladies. We were all college graduates. We were all around the same age, and we kind of all branched off in different areas. And I ended up going that technology route. If you had asked me coming out of college if there's any interest or a chance that I would pursue a technology area, I'd say absolutely not. It wasn't even a remote desire of mine. But once again, when something appears interesting and you pursue it with an open mind and you look forward to learning, strange things happen. Opportunities present themselves and you find yourself kind of navigating a different path just because you're learning at a different rate.
It's incredible that you say that. I have this story. We run a software company that helps enterprises build their software solutions. And one of our senior software project management directors, she was business graduate with a master's in business, an MBA, and she was specializing in laboratory, but in the business side, laboratories. So she worked for Abbott and all these, multinationals. When I met her, she had only basic computer knowledge, but never managing a software project, which how complicated it is. And I asked her, are you willing to take the leap of faith? Because we just had acquired, this was, oh my God, like 10 years ago, we had acquired a large client, one of the largest laboratories in Canada. And I needed her help, mostly because she knew the business, right? And I told her, if you were guided on the technology side, will you take the leap of faith and try this out? So I hired her as a junior business analyst. And my God, believe me, she's one of the best now in the company. Everybody goes to her for help. Not only she had the chemical and laboratory knowledge and health science knowledge, but now she has this amazing project management acumen on running software projects and guiding, being a tech leader for her development team. And it's amazing how she flourished just by taking the leap of faith.
But that's your point, is exactly my point, which is being willing to take yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And do the thing that scares you, even if it scares you a little bit or scares you a lot, is a big trait. And having the courage to face those fears and get past them is a big deal. And I don't think it's a majority of people that are willing to do that. I think it's more like 5 to 10% that capable or can get past those concerns and those, I don't feel comfortable, this is not natural for me. But those who do end up amassing new strengths, finding patterns where they can grow and evolve.
Incredible. It's incredible. And finding people like you is so hard. It's not easy. When I started to do the podcast, I had to put together a research team because we're data scientists, we know how to research data. So it's incredible when I finally meet people like you that have done it so well. And despite the fact that you were not in technology and you were able to pick it up on the way and create an incredible leader in technology. So what happened after?
I also believe that, there's no such thing as impossible. If you set your mind to it, you could do anything, right? You can invest in somebody else's dream as long as you come with the right attitude and your focus is there. So it's really, people sabotage themselves by undermining their own ability and second guessing themselves all the time. And it's also a fear of failure. If you're always afraid of failing, you're not going to try, right? If we were children and we, fell down the first time we tried to walk and we were afraid to fall again, none of us would be walking, right? But we were innately built to address these fears and move past them. It's just over time we start to change our desire to, take on risk, and it becomes less and less.
That whole concept of failing forward, I just remembered because you just said it, right? As a child, a child suffers when he's learning to walk, isn't it? fall
Absolutely.
down, they bruise their little knees, right? They bruise their little arms, but before you know, they're walking. They fell forward. They learn
And you
how
look
not
at
to do it.
them, they're tiny little things, but they're fearless and they do things that you would say, wait a second, why would you do that? Because they don't have that constant concern and that constant fear of something going badly. They haven't built that yet. They haven't put those barriers ahead of them.
Incredible. So, what happened after this opportunity? What was your next career opportunity after that?
Well, I think because that campground was so prominent for me, it set me off into a career that from that point on into technology in different spaces. I ended up taking on a role as a systems engineer for Computer Associate.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So I became an SE working for one of the largest software manufacturers in the world. It was still in my backyard. It was in Islandia, which was close, but what was very exciting about that opportunity is it was the first time I actually left my backyard and started to work in the city. So the metropolitan New York, of all places in the world, was a very, very exciting time in my career. All my colleagues were male, and I was learning at a very rapid pace at a different level now. Windows NT, systems and storage and backups and security and applications and interoperability and enterprise management. So that became the space where I learned more around how to deliver solutions and systems that companies need in order to really progress their operational mission. And it was an exciting part of my journey because I was surrounded by brilliant people. And I owe so much to all of my colleagues that were also beginning their careers in this space. And we learned together. We grew together. And it was a fun time for us.
Were you taking the train into the city every day?
I was. That was the beginning of 13 years of commuting into New York City, probably one of the best periods of my life. At that time, I had 2 children. So, I was also a young mom and, dealing with childcare and juggling different priorities and coming home late and having to still do a lot of the TLC that's needed to sustain a family. But it's one thing, to do that and to feel very exhausted by it. It's another thing to be motivated by the journey and by the mission. If you love and you're learning constantly and there's a challenge ahead of you every day, it makes you jump out of bed. And all of a sudden, getting only 5 or 6 hours of sleep and having babies crying and having to prepare the day and you feel like you're going to a journey every day. And it was probably one of the most challenging times of my career, but also one of the most rewarding.
Incredible. But it's all the mindset, isn't it? If you don't have the right mindset, it's impossible to achieve it, especially when you have to take care of young children, right?
It is, but something, wherever you are, you're meant to be. That's where you're meant to be. And I do believe that if you have the right mindset, opportunities open up for you, right? So did I know anything around that space specifically? No, I had worked on a Novell system and mainframe. I didn't know anything about servers and systems and backups and ghosting and VMware and all, different platforms. But there were other people that did know, and they were willing to answer questions and to participate and help grow together. And I had something to give to them. So we were partners and we were colleagues.
It's fascinating. You're so right, especially in technology. I remember, I have 2 computer science degrees in applied science specifically on software. I'm passionate about writing software and automating systems. And the second time that I graduated with my second degree, I said, okay, it's time to go get a job as a developer. And I thought I knew it all, right? Because, I had all these languages under my belt and I had written systems already that were in production. And I finally get this job as a software engineer. And when I show up, they told me, take these manuals. This is 1990, like 495, right? Take these manuals and you have 2 weeks to learn this language because none of the languages that we use. I knew it was a mainframe, and I had to learn it was a back system, and I had to learn DCL and all these operating system languages. And I'm like, I was so afraid. But I went past my fear, and I created courage. And I thought, if I was able to learn all these things, this should be similar. And sure enough, I got to the job, and I realized that all my college training, specific training in college, was not applicable, but they gave me the foundation at least, and I had mentors. So, I was trying to write my, all these things that they wanted me to write, but I had, one of my mentors, he has been in the job for many years, and he took me under his wing, and he, in 6 months, I was an expert. But I wasn't afraid. Other people would have been, oh, I don't know that language. Sorry, this is not the job for me, right?
Well, those are the different types of people. There are those who run into it and embrace it and learn from it and get past it, and those who run away from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't really get that far if you're constantly running from that which scares you, but that's what's going to grow you as well.
Incredible. It's so true. So you were now doing enterprise systems, right? Because you were doing local systems. Now you're on enterprise. How long did it take you for you to take a leadership role?
So it's interesting, and I tell this story when I mentor some younger people. I was asked maybe 3 years into my role at CA, and let me tell you, I loved working at CA. It's probably one of my favorite places that I've worked. I was moving from state to state, going in front of CIOs and CEOs and presenting and doing proof of concepts and doing RFPs and really basically helping sell a lot of solutions and also solve problems once they've been solved. So I was definitely growing and excited about what I was learning and becoming a subject matter expert. And so one of my many bosses at CA, and they were notorious for, reorging every 6 months. So you were always getting a new boss. But one of them sat down and said, you're really good at technology. And I could see that you're passionate at this space, and nobody knows enterprise management better than you. But if you were to look at yourself at the fork in the road, and if you go right, you continue to become, that expert, that evangelist in this space, and everybody's seeking you and looking for your expertise. That's one path. Or you take a sharp left turn and you go into management.
Mm.
And then you become, a leader of people and grow as a leader there. And it just felt so foreign when he said that. I said, no, I want to be an expert. I'm going to stay on the right side of the road. I didn't know 6 months later that I was going to be taking my first assignment as a manager off a help desk, nonetheless in a healthcare setting. So sometimes you think you know what you want to do, and then an opportunity presents itself. And once again, if you're willing to say yes to something that's foreign, and all because somebody sees something in you, you may not see it in yourself. See, what I didn't know is I was destined for this, and I was going to take this to different levels. But if I had just looked at what I knew and what I could do at the moment, I wasn't prepared for it.
Mm.
On every turn, I think I was not quite prepared for the change. I wasn't quite ready, but I said yes, even though I wasn't ready. So I got recruited to what was at the time called HIP Health Plans, which was a health insurance company in New York City, because I knew the solution. So they actually were a customer of CA's, and they liked how I presented, and they kind of recruited me from CA Technologies.
So that's where you became the manager for the help desk team?
Yeah, that was the first management role. I mean, I ended up amassing other responsibilities and getting promoted twice to an AD and then eventually a director of support services. So over the 10 years journey with HIP became Emblem Health because it merged with GHI. And there were a lot of growing pains with that organization, trying to bring two different communities, two different cultures together and really progress the strategy around service management. And that's where I started to dip more into process engineering and people management and cultural facets of leadership. So it was a huge growth spurt for me as well, being there for 10 years.
That is incredible. And the fact that you actually stayed, it shows that you were an exceptional leader. Usually when there is a merger, there is a lot of layoff, because that's why companies merge, so to do cost savings and just move forward with more profits.
This is true. It tends to be a very, very shaky ground. But I also believe that if you're confident in what you've built and you have a good process and you've got good operations, that ends up being visible. And leadership is taking toll of, what's working and what's not, where's the ideal place, and which leaders can actually get the whole team past that period of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky to be one of the leaders that was selected to help progress the Emblem Health mission. And I stayed, I think, only 5 years with the Emblem Health institution. And by then there was a lot of automation and a lot of processes that we had created that really sustained the growth for that organization moving forward.
That's wonderful. So now, what was the biggest obstacle, if you will, or the biggest lesson learned by moving from being a senior technology person into leadership? Because once you're very good in technology and you're delivering, you're responsible for yourself most of the time. But once you become a leader, you're responsible for people that you have very little control over.
Exactly it. Learning that you can't do everything, and that you have to trust your people, and you have to support them and guide them, but you cannot dictate to them. That was a big lesson. And you can't control what they do and what, who they are, right? So how to be empathetic, how to be supportive, how to be a good listener, how to be patient, how to guide, but not dictate, and how to roll your sleeves up and be part of the charge. So to be really in their corner and to bring about a movement because they believe in you, and that they believe in the mission, right? So if they trust you as a leader, then it's not really micromanagement. You're actually bringing them along a mission that they believe in and that they want to perform well. So that big lesson is that I can't do it myself, and I can't do everything, and I have to delegate. So delegating to other people, and also recognizing those who are performing and how to reward that, and those who are not yet at that level of performance, and how to bring them to either a better role where they can, or to guide them into ways to perform better in their current role.
That's incredible. That was the hardest lesson for me when I became a leader, because I grew up, I have military training. So I had 2 years of military training. So when I became a leader, I thought I needed to be the sergeant and just tell them what to do, and it shall be my way or the highway, and and that backfired really fast until some of my mentors started telling me, David, that's not the way to run a team. If you keep doing that, you're going to end up with no people.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, people are only going to do things if they really want to do it and if they believe in what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you have to get them to want to do it. And that means you have to start with the why they're doing it and how we're going to get to a better place. And those are important lessons as a new manager, that you have to learn that and make that become more natural, so it doesn't feel like it's forced or it's not authentic.
Right. And now we're talking about culture, right? Because I truly believe the leader is the one who sets the culture. And inspiring people to achieve greatness is one of the hardest things that you can learn how to do. I have been blessed to learn how to do that very well. That's why I'm so successful. But doing that is not easy at all. Especially with everybody thinks so differently and different cultural, ethnic backgrounds. In New York City, I bet it's the same as Toronto. Like in one of the jobs that I had, we had 28 countries represented in the company, and we were only 1,000 people.
So I agree with you. And that is one space where I think, for me specifically, I realized that you have to reward people. You have to recognize them, and you have to put them in their space of strength. So I started to identify different opportunities for people to excel, giving them stretch assignments, and also putting them up for awards. So in the 10 years that I was with Emblem Health, every year we had somebody winning an award in some category. Analyst of the Year, Desktop Support of the Year, Manager of the Year, different awards. And that recognition was at the local level in New York, and then it became regional, then it became national, right?
Nice.
That is still now a culture of pride, a culture of celebration. It's like celebrating Customer Service Week, having fun together, getting people to be excited about delivering service in a way that, it's personal for them and they're doing the right thing for the customer and for the company. So that's really something that I started to learn very much so by being an assistant director and then eventually a director, and having a larger group of people to manage in different areas, ranging from service desk, desktop, all the way to server administration, engineering, and even process.
Incredible. You touched on a point that is profound, and actually this not only relates to IT leadership, but leadership in general, especially as entrepreneur. The art of delegation. It's incredible how important it is, realizing that you cannot do everything yourself, and that you need to find the right people for the right job, for the right position, right?
Right, and allow them to not necessarily do it perfectly. Be tolerant if they don't do it exactly the way you did it, but as long as they do it skillfully and they want to improve, and you can guide them through that, you're building their strengths and their portfolio of services as well. And that is one of our most critical responsibilities as leaders, is to pass the torch over to others and to believe in them and to allow them to fail and to fall and to pick them up and help them along the way, and not make that failure define them. I would say that failures refine you, they don't define you. That's an important thing.
Yeah, like for me, there is no such thing as failures as long as you learn from the experience. Then it's actually learning, it's a lesson. Right? Yeah. Another thing that you touched on that was incredible for the audience, we're getting golden nuggets and all over the place. I have lights all over my brain right now. You said that you needed to put people in the position of their strength. I call that unique ability. So as a leader, you have the responsibility to find your people's unique ability and do the best you can within your power to place them in that position where they will shine and they will prosper. Right?
Exactly. But it also takes recognizing that having a diverse group of people with different talents coming from different parts of the world, different, ethnicities, different cultures, different languages, all of that makes for a better overall team and possibilities of different strengths from different areas. So for me, that was, because I'm in New York, the melting pot. It was a little bit easier than if I was in a suburbia where, it's too much of the same type of person and not too much variation. But I did realize that perhaps paying attention to people's unique abilities and giving them these small stretch assignments and delegating things that didn't always feel natural, but you see glimpses of their capabilities. And once you do, you know what? I think you're really good at writing. Maybe you should be part of an editorial team. Let's write an electronic bulletin. You could be one of the voice of the customer or talk about the progress. Somebody else might be much better at automation, and you're giving them things that are, more script-based, and they are tinkering with ways to simplify, right? When you recognize different strengths, somebody else could be a great report writer and they love the analytics. When you find people in their space of strength and you really catapult their careers because they're actually working with their strengths instead of suppressing them, beautiful things happen.
Yeah, and actually they start loving their job.
They do.
Right? And if you love your job, you're always going to go the extra mile, so everybody wins.
Then they come to work with passion, and they do things you didn't even anticipate. And the moving of the needle happens so quickly because people are working together, because they're excited about the mission, because they're passionate about what they're doing, and they bring all of their self to the office. There isn't that fear of failure. There's psychological safety, and that's one of the most exciting cultures to have, is a culture of psychological safety.
Yeah, and not being afraid of failure, because once you impose a culture of fear of failure, what you're doing is killing innovation.
Absolutely.
And when you kill innovation, you're writing your death sentence, no matter how big your company is, right?
Exactly. And you end up pigeonholing yourself into a very limited space where you're bound by all these constraints and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's not where you want to be.
That's incredible. Wow, so much wisdom. What would you recommend a person that probably is in junior management right now, they want to go into leadership, senior leadership positions? What would you recommend a person like that in that situation right now? How to advance in their career?
So one of the things I say is really look, listen, and learn. Be really, really open-minded and look at how other people are in those roles and what they do, and put yourself out there and try to obtain lessons from them, either by asking them to mentor you or volunteering to assist them in different ways, or watching what they do, reading about what they do. You can look and learn quite a bit. But one of the biggest skill sets to have is to be a great listener. And when you listen really, really thoroughly to people, when you listen to trends, when you listen to what's happening in the industry, and you learn at a faster rate, you become better at anticipating issues and challenges. You become more empathetic, and that emotional intelligence comes to really aid you in so many different ways. So I would recommend really augmenting your learning and looking to learn from different sources, podcasts, from people, from experiences, from assignments. There isn't one path to learning, but if you are constantly in a space of learning, opportunities will present themselves. And if you're not afraid to learn and to put yourself out there, you're growing, and the growth is what's going to catapult your career.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. So much wisdom. Wow. Nora, thank you so much for being in this show. I really want to appreciate you, and I'm conscious of your time. I know you're a very busy professional. Before we end the podcast, I'll ask you one last question. If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, which is probably New York City, by the way, what would you write in it?
Wow, that's a profound question. I think of all the questions I've ever been asked, I've never been asked that. What would I put on a billboard? I would say it would have to be something that matters. We're all part of the same world, and everybody matters. Remember that. We all matter. Wherever you are, there are others that matter too.
That's beautiful. And it's so true. Your heart matters. Your heart is important.
We all matter. There
right?
are hierarchies, there are levels, there are different classes and styles of living, but everybody matters. We were all put on this earth because we matter. And recognizing that there are needs and wants and desires for everybody is important. Whether you're a leader or a worker or a parent or a child, everybody matters, and having that respect for others and their needs, and recognizing that everybody matters in that equation. Nothing more than the pandemic showed us, right? Think about how it leveled the playing field across every position across the entire world. We all matter. And recognizing that in the equation of the world that we live in every day is important.
And you touched a great point. We matter, and the fact that we matter is also realizing the need that we need human connectivity. We need to be with each other. The pandemic showed how horrible it is to live isolated, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that we gain more by lifting each other and helping each other. I mean, one of the things we all learned is that we all need each other in this pandemic, right? We needed to support each other. We needed to help get certain things for each other. We were doing things for each other. We were all supportive. We went back to the basics of recognizing how everybody matters and how everybody has value. And that was one of the beautiful lessons that were distilled from this global pandemic.
Mhm.
Now that we're resuming back into, more normal ways of living and working, I'm hoping that message doesn't get lost perpetually.
I don't think so. I think we're still healing from our health trauma from the pandemics. But it's a lot of people stayed working from home. I didn't get too affected because I decided to open a remote company in 2005. I have people in more than 9 countries in the world, and everybody works from home except me. I do have a head office with all the senior people, but I see the impact when people work from home and they don't have a culture of at least getting together once in a while. What we do is, like, because we're experts of remote work, we do these online parties and we talk about sports or whatever it is, right? For the World Cup, for example, right?
Yeah.
But we make sure we see each other, either remotely, in a social sense, or we get together. We have these gatherings. But if we lose that, people start getting depressed.
Stop celebrating people's successes, whose kid graduated, whose friend got married, who's got a parent in a hospital, who's struggling with certain things. All these things matter to people, and if we pay attention to what matters to people, that brings us together.
Yeah.
And makes us more supportive, empathetic leaders. And when you have that culture of engagement, because we care about each other, so many things change, and you end up doing great things as a company and as a community.
It's wonderful. Nora, thank you so much for being in the show. If people would like to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I'm always open to new connections. And pretty soon I will be actually launching my own website. So perhaps that's another channel.
Cannot wait. Maybe when this podcast is live, we'll get the chance to actually put the URL there already.
Absolutely let you know what it is once it's up and ready. But
Nora, thank you so much. Thank you for helping make this world a better place and keep inspiring people. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was great having you here.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.